Hello, my dear friends. Welcome to the episode 9 of Mahabharata Reading Challenge. And like always, we are starting with the prayers. Firstly, for Hanumanji. Shri Guru Charan Saroj Raj, Nijman Mukur Suthar, Parnau Raghuvar Bimal Jasu, Jo Dayaku Falchar. बुद्धिहीन तानु जानी के सुमिरो पवन कुमार बल बुद्धि विद्या देहु मोहि हरहु कलेस विकार. Knowing that the mind of mine has less intelligence, I remember the son of wind, who, granting me strength, wisdom, and all kinds of knowledge, removes all my sufferings and shortcomings. बजरंग बाण निश्चय प्रेम प्रतीत ते विनय करु सन्मान तेहि के कारज सकल शुभ सिद्ध करे हनुमान. जय हनुमंत संत हितकारी सुन लीजिए प्रभु अर्ज हमारी जन के काज विलम्ब न कीजिए आतुर दोर महासुख दीजिए. आंखें देखे मौन मुख सहा कहाँ नहीं जाए लेख विधाता का लिखा कौन किसे समझाए कौन किसे समझाए. वचन दिया सोचा नहीं होगा क्या परिणाम सोच समझकर कीजिए जीवन में हर काम. जीवन को समझा रहा जिया हुआ इतिहास जीवन को समझा रहा जिया हुआ इतिहास. जब तक तन में श्वास है तब तक मन में आस तब तक मन में आस. आस कह रही श्वास से धीरज धरना सीख आस कह रही श्वास से धीरज धरना सीख. मांगे बिन मोती मिले मांगे बिन मोती मिले मांगे मिले न भीख मांगे मिले न भीख. है कथा संग्राम की विश्व के कल्याण की धर्म अधर्म आदि अनंत सत्य असत्य कलेश कलंक स्वार्थ की कथा परमार्थ की. शक्ति है भक्ति है जन्मों की मुक्ति है जीवन का ये संपूर्ण सार है. युग युग से कण कण में सृष्टि के दर्पण में वेदों की कथा अपार है. धर्मों की गाथा है देवों की भाषा है सदियों के इतिहास का प्रमाण है. कृष्णा की महिमा है गीता की गरिमा है ग्रंथों का ग्रंथ ये महान है. महाभारत महाभारत महाभारत. सुख करता दुख हरता वार्ता विघ्नाची हो वार्ता विघ्नाची नोवे पूर्वी प्रेम कृपाया जायाची. सर्वांगी सुंदर उतिशेंदुराची हो उतिशेंदुराची कांठी झालके माला मुक्ता फलांची. जय देव जय मंगल मूर्ति जय देव जय मंगल मूर्ति. दर्शन मात्रे मन कामना पूर्ति जय देव जय मंगल मूर्ति हो श्री मंगल मूर्ति. दर्शन मात्रे मन कामना पूर्ति जय देव जय मंगल मूर्ति. Think him as Vishnu while taking medicine, as Janardhan while eating food, as Padmanabha while in bed, as Prajapati at the time of marriage, as Chakradhara while engaged in war, as Trivikrama while on travel, as Narayana on deathbed, as Sridhara while meeting with the beloved, as Govinda while tossing with bad dreams, as Madhusudan while in trouble, as Narsimha while in forest, as Jalasayana while fire is ravaging, as Vara while struggling in water, as Raghunandan while lost in a mountain, as Vamana while on the move, and as Madhav while doing everything. यह तो प्रेम की बात है ऊधो बंदगी तेरे बस की नहीं है. यहाँ सर दे के होते हैं सौदे आशिकी इतनी सस्ती नहीं है. प्रेम वालों ने कब वक्त पूछा उनकी पूजा है सुन ले पूजा में सुन ले ए ऊधो. यहाँ दम दम में होती है पूजा सर झुकाने की फुर्सत नहीं है. जो असल में है मस्ती में डूबे उन्हें क्या परवाह ज़िंदगी की. जो उतरती है चढ़ती है मस्ती वो हकीकत में मस्ती नहीं है. जिसकी नज़रों में शाम प्यारे वो तो रहते हैं जग से न्यारे. जिसकी नज़रों में मोहन समाए वो नज़रें फिर तरसती नहीं है. Today on day 9 we are invoking prayers for Shivji and Parvati ji. कर्पूर गौरम करुणा अवतारम संसार सारम भुजगेंद्र हारम सदा वसंतम हृदय रविंदे भवम भवानी सहितम नमामि. I bow to Bhavani as well as Lord Shiva, who is white as camphor, who is compassion incarnate, who is the essence of the world, who wears a garland of large snake and who always dwells in the lotus like hearts of his devotees. So friends, today on day 9 we are going to start with Matsya defended until I hope that we will be able to cover Arjuna's charioteer. Okay, 45 until 50, let's see on day 9. Okay. Matsya defended. The fate of Kichaka made Draupadi an object of fear to the people of Virata. This woman, so beautiful that she captures all hearts, is as dangerous as she is lovely. Oh, that is nice. This woman, so beautiful that she captures all hearts, is as dangerous as she is lovely, for the Gandharvs guard her. This woman, so beautiful that she captures all hearts, is as dangerous as she is lovely, for the Gandhars guard her. She is a great danger to the people of the city and the members of royal household, for the Gandharvs may stop at nothing in their jealous anger. It would be best to stand her out of the city. Reflecting thus, that is, the citizens went to Sudeshna and prayed to her to expel Draupadi. Sudeshna told Draupadi, "You are no doubt a very virtuous lady, but kindly leave our city. I have had enough of you." There was only 1 month more to complete the stipulated period of living incognito, and Draupadi begged earnestly to be permitted to stay just another month. By when she said her Gandharv husband would have realized their objects and would be ready to take her away with them, the Gandharvs would be very grateful to King Virata and his kingdom. Whether grateful or not, the Gandharvs could be deadly if irritated, and Sudeshna was too afraid of Draupadi to refuse her request. From the beginning of the 13th year, the spies of Duryodhan, under his express orders, had searched for Pandavas in all possible places of hiding. After several months of futile search, they reported their failure to Duryodhan and added that probably the Pandavas had perished of privations. Then came the news of powerful Kichaka had been killed in a single combat by some Gandharv on account of women. There were only two persons who could kill Kichaka, and Bhim was one of them, and so they suspected that Bhim might have been the vengeful Gandharv who had killed Kichaka. Duryodhan also felt that the lady who was the cause of killing might be Draupadi. He expressed his doubts in the open assembly. He said, "I suspect that Pandavas are in Virata city. Now he is one of the kings who are too stiff-necked to court the friendship. It would be a good thing to invade his country and carry away his cow. If the Pandavas are hiding there, they will certainly come out to fight with us to repay Virata's hospitality, and we can easily spot them. If we discover them there and we can sure before the stipulated time, they will have to go to the forest again for another 12 years. If on the other hand the Pandavas are not there, there is nothing lost." King Susarma, the ruler of Trigartha, heartily supported him. "The king of Matsya is my enemy," he said, "and Kichaka has given me a lot of trouble. Kichaka's death must have weakened Viratas considerably. Give me leave to attack Virata now." Karna seconded this proposition. They unanimously came to the decision that Sarma should attack Matsya from the south and draw off the army of Virata to the south of defense. Duryodhan with the Kaurava army would then launch a surprise attack on Virata from the northern side, which would be relatively undefended. Susharma invaded Matsya from the south, seized the cattle, and laid waste the gardens and fields on the way. The cowherds ran in great distress to Virata, who now very much wished that Kichaka were alive, for he surely would have made short work of the raiders. When he said so to Kanka, the assumed name by which Yudhishthir was known in Virata's court, the later said, "O king, be not worried. Even though I am a hermit, I am an expert in warfare. I shall put on armor and go in a chariot and drive away your enemies. Please instruct that your horse keeper Dharma Granthi, your chief cook Valala, and your stable herd Tantripala may also get into chariots and help us. I have heard that they are great fighters. Kindly give orders that the necessary chariots and the weapons may be given to us." Delighted Virata was only too willing to accept the offer. The chariots were ready. All the Pandavas excepting Arjun went out with the army of Virata to oppose Susarma and his men. A fierce fight ensued between the armies of Virata and Susarma with much loss of life on both sides. Susarma attacked Virata and surrounded his chariot, compelling him to get down and fight on foot. Susarma captured Virata and held him captive in his chariot. With the capture of Virata, the army of Matsya lost heart and began to scatter in all directions. And when Yudhishthir commanded Bhima to attack Susarma and release Virata and rally the scattered Matsya forces. At these words of Yudhishthir, Bhima was about to uproot a tree, but Yudhishthir stopped him and said, "No such tricks, please, and no battle cry, or your identity will be revealed. Fight like anybody else from the chariot with your bows and arrows." Bhima accordingly got into the chariot, attacked the enemy, set Virata free, and captured Susarma. The dispersed force of Matsya rallied into new formation, changed and defeated the army of Susarma. As soon as the news of Susarma's defeat reached the city, the people were extremely jubilant. They decorated the city and went forth to welcome their victorious king back home. When they were thus making preparation to receive King Virata, the big army of Duryodhan came down on them from the north and began despoiling the cattle ranches on the outskirts of the city. The Kauravas' army marched in force and rounded up the countless cows that were there. The leader of the cowherds ran to the city and said to the Prince Uttara, "O Prince, the Kauravas are marching on, robbing us of our cows. King Virata has gone south to fight against the Trigarta. We are in consternation. As there is no one to protect us. You are the king's son, and we look to you for protection. Pray come and recover the cows for the honor of your family." When the leader of the cowherd made this complaint to Uttara in the presence of people and especially of the women of the palace, the prince felt flushed with valor and proudly said, "If only I can get someone to be my charioteer, I will recover the cows single-handed. Well, my feats of arms will be worth seeing, and people will know there is little to choose between Arjuna and myself." When Uttara said these words, Draupadi was in the inner apartment and must have laughed within herself. She ran to Princess Uttara and said, "O Princess, great danger has befallen the country. The cowherds have complained to the young that the Kauravas' army is advancing on our city from north and has captured cattle ranches and cows on the outskirts. The prince is eager to fight them and is in need of charioteer. Should such a small thing as that stand in the way of victory and glory? I tell you that Brihanala has been Arjun's charioteer. When I was in the service of the queen of the Pandavas, I heard of this fact, and I also know that Brihanala learnt archery from the Arjun. Order Brihanala immediately to go and drive the prince's chariot." Arjuna, as Brihanala, pretended to be unfamiliar with armor and raised a laugh at his unawkwardness in wearing it. The women of the palace laughed at his fears and told him again not to be afraid of Uttara would look after him. Arjuna spent some time in such fun, but when he harnessed horses, it could be seen that at least he was an expert charioteer, and when he held the reins, the horses seemed to love and obey him. "The prince will be victorious. We shall despoil the enemy of their embroidered robes and distribute them to you as the prize of victory," were the last words of Brihanala to the woman of the palace, as the chariot rapidly bore the prince outwards to battle. Prince Uttara. Uttara, the son of Virata, sat off with enthusiasm from the city in his chariot with Brihanala as his charioteer, and commanded the latter to drive quickly to the palace, to the place where the Kauravas had rounded up the cows. Willingly the horses were put to their best speed, and presently the Kaurava army was sighted. At first a gleaming line enveloped in a cloud of dust that seemed to go up to the skies. Going near, Uttara saw the great army driven the battle by Bhishma, Drona, Kripa, Duryodhan and Karna. At the sight, his courage, which had been gradually drying up during the rapid rush to the field, was quite gone. His mouth went dry and his hair stood on the end. His limbs were all in tremble. He shut his eyes with both his hands to keep out the fearsome sight. He said, "How can I single-handed attack an army? I have no troops since the kings my father has taken all available forces, leaving the city unprotected. It is absurd to think that one man can alone fight a well-equipped army led by world-renowned warrior." "Oh, Brihanala, turn back the chariot." Brihanala laughed and said, "Oh, prince, you started from the city full of fierce determination, and the ladies expect great things of you. The citizens also have put their trust in you. Serandhari praised me, and I have come at your request. If we return without recovering the cows, we shall become the laughing stock of all. I will not turn back the chariot. Let us stand firm and fight. Have no fear." With these words, Brihanala began to drive the chariot towards the enemy, and they approached quite close to them. Uttara's distress was pitiable. He said in a quaking voice, "I cannot do it. I simply cannot let the Kauravas march off with the cows, and if women laugh, let them. I do not care. What sense is there in fighting people who are immeasurably stronger than we fight? Do not be a fool, turn back the chariot, otherwise I shall jump out and walk back." With these words, Uttara cast off his bows and arrows, got down from the chariot, and began to fly towards the city, mad with panic. This should not be taken as something that has never happened in life, nor is Uttara's panic during his first battle by any means singular. Fear is strong, instinctive feeling, though it can be overcome by willpower or strong motives like love, shame, or hate, or more usually by discipline. Okay, that is very important. Fear is a strong instinctive feeling, though it can be overcome by willpower or strong motives like love, shame, or hate, or more usually by discipline. Even men who have afterwards distinguished themselves by heroic deeds have confessed to having felt something like panic fear the first time they came under fire. Uttara was by no means an exceptional coward, for he fought and fell gauntly at Kurukshetra. Arjuna pursued the running prince, shouting to him and stop and behave like a Kshatriya. The braided hair of the charioteer began to dance, and his clothes began to wave as he ran in pursuit of Uttara. The prince fled hither and thither, trying to dodge the hands that would stop him. Those of the Kaurava army who could see this spectacle found it amusing. Drona was puzzled at the sight of Brihanala, who, albeit dressed fantastically, seemed a man dressed out as a woman, and to remind him curiously of Arjun. When he remarked about this, Karna said, "How can this be Arjun? What does it matter even if he is? What can Arjun alone do against us in the absence of other Pandavas? The king has left his son alone in the city and gone with his whole army to fight against Susarma. The young prince has bought the attendant of the ladies of the palace as his charioteer. That is all." Poor Uttara was imploring Brihanala to let him go, promising untold wealth if he did so. He appealed to his pity. "I am the only son of my mother. I am a child grown up on my mother's lap. I am full of fear." But Brihanala wanted to save him from himself and would not let him go. He pursued him, seized him, and dragged him to the chariot by force. Uttara began to sob and said, "What a fool I was to brag! Alas, what will happen to me?" Arjuna said kindly, soothing the prince's fear, "Be not afraid. I shall fight with the Kauravas. Help me by looking after the horses and driving the chariot, and I shall do the rest. Believe me, no good ever came to the fight. We will rout the enemy and recover your cows. You will have all the glory." With these words, Arjuna lifted the prince on to the chariot and putting the reins in his hand, asked him to drive towards a tree near the burial ground. Drona, who was watching all this intently, knew that the fantastically dressed charioteer was Arjuna and shared his knowledge with Bhishma. Duryodhana named to Karna and said, "Why should we worry who he is? Even if he is Arjun, he will be only playing into our hands, for his being discovered will send the Pandavas to the forest for another 12 years." As soon as they came near the tree, Brinala bade the prince get down, climb the tree, and take down the arms hidden there. The prince said in alarm and grief, "People say that with what hangs on tree is the corpse of an old huntress. How can I touch a dead body? How can you ask me to do such thing?" Arjuna said, "It's not a corpse, prince. I know that it contains a weapon of Pandavas. Climb up to the tree bravely and bring them down. Do not delay." Seeing that resistance was of no avail, Uttara climbed up the tree as Brihanala had asked him to and took in great disgust the bag tied up there and came down. When the leather bag was opened, he saw weapons as bright as the sun. Uttara stood amazed at the sight of the gleaming weapons and covered his eyes. He mustered courage and touched them. The touch seemed to send a stream of hope and high courage into him. He asked with ardor, "O charioteer, what a wonder! You say that these bows and arrows and swords belong to Pandavas. They have been deprived of their kingdom and they have retired to the forest. Do you know them? Where are they?" Then Arjuna told him briefly how they were all in Virata's court. He said, "Kanka, who serves the king, is Yudhishthir. Valala, the cook who prepares such nice dishes for your father, is none other than Bhima. Serendhari, who for insulting whom Kichaka was killed, is Draupadi. Dharmgranthi, who looks after the horses, and Tantripala, the keeper of cows, are Nakula and Sahadev, respectively. I am Arjun. Be not afraid, O prince. You will soon see me defeat the Kauravas even in the sight of Bhishma, Drona, and Ashwathama, and recover the cows. You will also gain renown, and it will be a lesson to you." Then Uttara folded his hands and said, "O Arjuna, how fortunate I am to see you with my own eyes." So Arjuna is the victorious hero whose very contact has put heart and courage into me. Forgive the wrongs I have done through ignorance. As they approached the Kauravas' host, Arjun recounted some of his heroic deeds so that Uttara might not lose grip of his newly awakened courage. Arriving, newly awakened courage. Arriving in the front of Kauravas, he got down, prayed to God, removed the conch bangles from his hands, and put on the leather gauntlets. He then tied a cloth on his flowing hair, stood facing the east, meditated on his armor, got into the chariot, and gloried in the familiar feel of his famous Gandhiva bow. He stringed it and thrice twanged the string, whose shrill note raised an echo from all sides. Hearing the sound, the heroes of the Kauravas' army said to one another, "This surely is Gandhiva's voice." When Arjuna stood on the chariot in all his godlike stature and blew his conch, Devadatta, the Kaurava army was alarmed, and a frenzied shout arose that the Pandavas had come. The story of Uttara, who spoke boastfully in the ladies' boudoirs and fled in panic at the sight of the hostile array, has not been introduced in Mahabharata merely as a comic interlude. It is an ordinary human nature to look with contempt on lower level of conduct and ability. The rich scorn the poor, the beautiful scorn the plain, and the strong scorn the weak. Brave men despise cowards. But Arjuna was no ordinary man. He was a great soul and a true hero who felt that his duty as a strong, brave man was to help others to rise above their weakness. But Arjuna was not a was no ordinary man. He was a great soul and a true hero who felt that his duty as a strong, brave man was to help others to rise above their weakness. Knowing that nature had endowed him with courage and bravery at birth, and that he owed them to no special exertions on his part, he had the true humility of the really great, and he did not he did what he could to put courage into Uttara and make him worthy of his lineage. This was Arjuna's characteristic nobility. He never abused his strength and power. One of his many names is Bhibatsu, which means one can shrink from doing an unworthy act, and he lived up to it. Okay. Promise fulfilled. The chariot of Arjun thundered on its ways, seeming to shake the earth. The hearts of Kauravas quaked when they heard the twangs of Gandiva bow. Our army must be arrayed well and with care. Arjuna has come, said Drona anxiously. Duryodhan did not at all like the honor. Drona did Arjuna by his anxiety. Duryodhan did not at all like the honor Drona did Arjun by this anxiety. He said to Karna, the Pandavas' pledge was they would spend 12 years in the forest and the following year undiscovered. The 13th year has not ended yet. Arjuna has revealed himself before the time. Why then should we give way to fear? The Pandavas will have to go again to the forest for another 12 years. Drona is suffering from the cold feet of the too learned. Let us leave him in the rear and advance to the battle. Karna assented and said, our soldier heart is not in the fight, and they are trembling with fear. They say that the man who stands so proudly, bow in hand, on the chariot speeding toward us is Arjun. But why need we fear even if it were a Parshuram? I will myself stop the advancing warrior and redeem my word to you and fight him. I, even if all the others stand back, they may drive away the cows of Matsya king while single handed. I shall give them cover, engaging Arjuna in battle. And Karan, as usual, began to blow his own trumpet. When Kripa heard these words of Karna, he said, this is pure tomfoolery. We must all make a combined attack on Arjun. That would be our one chance of success. Do not therefore brag about your opposing him alone and unaided. Karna grew angry. He said, the Acharya ever delights in singing Arjun praises and in magnifying his prowesses. Whether he does so from fear or excessive fondness for the Pandavas, I do not know. Those who are afraid need not fight, but may simply look on, while others who are true to the salt they have eaten engage in the battle. I, for one, a mere soldier who loves my friends and hates my enemies, will stand here and fight. What business have men learned in Vedas who love and praise their enemies got here? Said he sneeringly. Ashwatthama, Drona's son and Kripa's nephew, could not hear unmoved the sneer at the venerable teachers. He said sternly to Karna, we have not yet taken the king back to Hastinapur, and the battle is yet to be won. Your brag is idle vainglory. It may be that we are not Kshatriyas and that we belong to the class that recites the Vedas and the Shastras, but I have not been able to find in any Shastra that it is honorable for kings to seize kingdoms by cheating at dice. Even those who fight and conquer kingdoms do not crow too loudly about it. Oh, that's also nice. Even those who fight and conquer kingdoms do not crow too loudly about it. And I cannot see what you have done to be proud of. The fire is silent and yet cooks the food. The sun shines but not on him. Likewise, Mother Earth sustains all things movable and immovable and supports her burden without so much as a whisper. What claims to praise has a Kshatriya who has unlawfully seized another kingdoms at a game of dice? To have cheated the Pandavas of their kingdom is no more a matter of glory than to have spread traps for unsuspecting birds. O Duryodhan, O Karna, in what battle did your heroes defeat the Pandavas? You dragged Draupadi to assembly. Are you proud of it? You have destroyed the Kauravas' race like an empty-headed colt that fells a big sandal tree for love of its fragrance. A fight with Arjuna you will find is very different thing from a throw of the dice. The Gandiva will send forth sharp arrows and not fours and twos as in the game of dice, fours or twos as in the game of dice. Vain fools, do you think that Shakuni can, by mere cheating, sneak a victory in battle for you? The leaders of Kaurva army lost their patience and began a loud, wordy warfare. Seeing this, the grandsire was filled with sorrow and said, "The wise man does not insult his teachers." One should engage in battle only after a careful calculation of time, place, and circumstance. Even wise people often lose their balance and good sense over their own affairs. Ruffled by anger, even the unusually so sensible Duryodhan fails to recognize that the warrior who stands braving our army is Arjun. His intellect has been clouded by anger. O Ashwatthama, pray do not mind Karna's offensive remarks. You must take them as intended, merely to put the preceptor on their best spirit and setting them into action. This is not the time to nurse enmity or sow dissension. Drona, Kripa, and Ashwatthama should forget and forgive. Where can the Kauravas find in the whole world the hero superior to Drona, the preceptor, and his son Ashwatthama, who combine in themselves Vedic scholarships and Kshatriya heroism? We know of none other than Parshurama who can equal Drona. We can conquer Arjuna only if we all join together and fight him. Let us address ourselves to task before us. If we quarrel against ourselves, we cannot fight Arjuna. Thus spoke the grandsire. Soothed by his noble words, angry feelings subsided. Bhishma turned to Duryodhan and continued, "Best of kings, Arjuna has come. The stipulated period of 13 years terminated yesterday. Your calculation is wrong. As men learned in the science of planetary movements will tell you, I knew that the period had ended when Arjuna blew his gong. Reflect a little before deciding on war. If you wish to make peace with the Pandavas, now is the time for it. What do you seek? A just and honorable peace or a mutually destructive war? Ponder well and make your choice." Duryodhan replied, "Revered sire, I have no wish for peace. I shall not give even a village to Pandavas. Let us get ready for war." Then Drona said, "Let Prince Duryodhan take away a fourth of army to guard him and return to Hastinapur. Let another surround the cow and seize them. If we would return without seizing the cow, it would amount to an acknowledgement of defeat. With the rest of army, the 5 of us will give battle to Arjun." The Kauravas force ranged themselves accordingly in battle array. Arjuna said, "O Uttara, I do not see Duryodhana's chariot or Duryodhana. I see Bhishma standing clad in armor. I think Duryodhan is driving away the cows to Hastinapur. Let us pursue him and recover the cow." With these words, Arjuna moved away from Kaurva army and went after Duryodhan and the cows. And as he was going, he respectfully greeted his teachers and the old grandsire by drawing his Gandiva bow and sending arrows so as to fall near their feet. Reverently saluting them in the heroic fashion, he left them and pursued Duryodhan. Arjuna reached the place where the cows were gathered and put to the rout the marauding force. He then turned to the cowards and asked them to take the cows to the barns, which they did with great rejoicing. Arjuna then pursued Duryodhan. Seeing this, Bhishma and other Kaurava warriors rushed to rescue and surrounding Arjuna sent forth arrows against him. Arjuna carried on a wonderful fight. First he made at Karna and drove him from the battlefield. After that he attacked, defeated Drona. Seeing Drona standing spent with fatigue, Ashwatthama joined in the fight and attacked Arjuna, which gave Arjuna an opportunity of letting Drona withdraw from the field. Then there ensued a bitter struggle between Ashwatthama and Arjuna. When Ashwatthama grew weary, Kripa relieved him and maintained the attack against Arjuna, but Kripa also sustained defeat and the whole army was routed and fled in fear. Though rallied and brought back to attack by Bhishma, Drona and others, there was no fight left in them. Finally, they left the field after a glorious fight between Bhishma and Arjun, which it said the god themselves came to see. The attempt to head off Arjun's pursuit of Duryodhan thus failed, and soon Arjun came up with Duryodhan and strongly attacked him. Duryodhan was defeated and fled from the battlefield, but not far, because when Arjuna taunted him with cowardice, he turned round like a serpent and resumed the fight. Bhishma and others surrounded and protected him. Arjun fought, and finally he employed a magic weapon that made them all fall down unconscious on the battlefield. While they were in the condition, he snatched away their garments. The seizure of the clothes of the enemy was a sign of decisive victory in those days. When Duryodhan came, Bhishma sent him back to the city. The whole army returned to Hastinapur after the humiliating defeat. Arjuna said, "O Uttara, turn back the horses. Our cows have been regained. Our enemies have fled. O Prince, return to your kingdom, adorning your person with sandal paste and decked with flowers." On the way back, Arjun deposited the weapons as before on the tree and dressed himself once more as Brihanala. He sent messengers in advance to proclaim in the city that Uttara had won a glorious victory. Virata's delusion. And then there is taking counsel and Arjuna's charioteer. We will read until the 50 today in day 9, on day 9. Where are we? So Virata's delusion, I think we were reading about that. After defeating Susarma, king of Trighata, Virata returned to his capital amidst the acclamation of the citizen. When he reached his palace, he saw that Uttara was not there, and the women told him, in much elation, that Uttara had set out to conquer the Kauravas. They had not a doubt that their handsome prince could conquer the whole world, but the king's heart sank within him at the news, for he knew the impossible task which the delicately nurtured prince had taken on himself with no better following than a eunuch. "My dearly loved son must be dead by now," he cried, overwhelmed with anguish. He then bade his ministers collect and send a strong force as could be got together for rescuing Uttara if he was still alive, and bring him back. Scouts also were immediately dispatched to find out Uttara's whereabouts and fate. Dharmputra, now disguised as Sannyasin Kanka, tried to comfort Virata by assuring him that the prince could come to no harm, since Brihanala had gone on as his charioteer. You do not know about her," said he. "I do. Whosoever fights from a chariot driven by her can be sure of victory." Further, the news of Susarna Susarma's defeat must have reached there and the Kauravas must have retreated. Meanwhile, courtiers arrived from the field of the battle with the glad news that Uttara had defeated the Kauravas' forces and recovered the kine. This seemed too good to be true even to the fond father, but Yudhishthir smilingly reassured him, said he have no doubts. O king, what the messengers say must be true. When Brihanala went out as charioteer, success was certain. There is nothing extraordinary in your son's victory. I happen to know that even Indra's charioteers or Krishna's cannot equal Brihanala. This seemed absurd to Virata, but he was too happy to resent it. He made large gift of precious stone and other wealth to the messenger who brought the good news and ordered public rejoicing. My success over Susarma is nothing, he proclaimed. The prince is the real victory. Let special prayers of thanksgiving will be thanksgiving be offered at all places of worship. Let all the principal streets are decorated with flags and the citizens go in procession to strains of triumphal music. Make all arrangements to receive in a befitting manner my lion-hearted boy. Virata sent out minister soldiers and maidens to welcome his son. They talked. Virata sent out ministers, soldiers, and maidens to welcome his son returning in triumph. When the king retired to his private apartment, he asked Serendhari to bring the dice. He said to Kanka, I cannot contain my joy. Come, let us play, and sat down to a game with Yudhishthir. They talked while they played, and naturally the king was full of his son's greatness and prowess. See the glory of my son, Bhumin Jaya. He has put the famed Kauravas warrior to fight. Yes, replied Yudhishthir with a smile, your son is indeed fortunate, for without the best of good fortune, how could he have secured Brihanala to drive his chariot? Virata was angry at this persistent glorification of Brihanala at the expenses of Uttara. Why do you again and again babble about the eunuch? He cried. While I am talking about my son's victory, you expatiate on the charioting skills of the eunuch, as if that were of any significance. The king's anger only increased when Kanka remonstrated. I know what I am talking about. Brihanala is no ordinary person. The chariot she drives can never see defeat, and whoever is in it is sure of success in any undertaking, no matter how difficult. Now the perverse flouting could not be borne, and Virata in a passion flung the dice at Yudhishthir's face and followed this up with a blow on Yudhishthir's cheek. Yudhishthir was hurt and blood flowed down his face. Serendhari, who was nearby, wiped the blood with the edge of his garment and squeezed into a golden cup. Why all this fuss? What are you collecting the blood into a cup for? Demanding the angry king, who was still in a passion. A sannyasin blood may not be spilt on the ground. O king, replied Serendhari, the rains will fail in your land for as many years as there are drops in the blood that is split on the earth. That's why I collected the blood in this cup. I fear you do not know Kanka's greatness. Meanwhile, the gatekeeper announced Uttara and Brihanala have arrived. The prince is waiting for an audience with the king. Virata got up excitedly and said, ask him in, ask him in. And Yudhishthir whispered to the sentry, let Uttara come alone. Brihanala should stay behind. He did this to prevent a catastrophe, for he knew Arjun would be unable to control his anger when he saw the injury on his brother's face. He could not bear to see Dharmaputra hurt by anyone except in fair battle. Uttara entered and paid due homage to his royal father. When he turned to do obeisance to Kanka. He was horrified to see his bleeding face, for now he knew that Kanka was the great Yudhishthir. O king, he cried, who was it that caused hurt to this great one? Virata looked at his son and said, why all this fuss about it? I struck him for the untimely and envious belittling of you when I was an ocean of delight at the news of your glorious victory. Each time I mentioned you, this unlucky Brahman extolled your charioteer, the eunuch, and gave the victory to him. It was too silly, really, and I am sorry I struck him, but it is not worthy talking about. Uttara was overwhelmed with fear. Alas, you have done great wrong. Fall at his feet right now, father, and pray for forgiveness, or we will be destroyed root and branch. Rata, to whom all this was inexplicable, stood with a puzzled frown, not knowing what to do. But Uttara was so anxious and importunate that he yielded and bowed to Yudhishthir, asking for a pardon. Thereafter, embracing his son and making him sit, Virata said, my boy, you are truly a hero. I am in a fever of impatience to hear all about it. How did you defeat the Kaurava army? How did you recover the kine? Uttara hung his head down. I conquered no army, he said, and rescued no cows. All that was work of a god prince. He took up our cause, rescued me from destruction, put the Kaurava soldier to flight, and brought the herd back. I did nothing. The king Cloud hardly believed his ears. Where is that god prince? He asked. I must see and thank the hero who rescued my son and beat back my foes. I will give my daughter Uttara in marriage to him. Go and fetch him in. He said he has disappeared for the time being, replied the prince. But I think he will come again either today or tomorrow. Uttara spoke thus because Arjun was indeed a prince of gods and had also for the time being disappeared in Brihanala. In Virata's hall assembly, all the leading citizens had gathered to celebrate the king's victory, and the prince Kankas, Balala the cook, Brihanala, Tantripala, and Dharmagranthi, who were responsible for the victories, arrived also. In entering the hall, to the surprise of everyone, sat amongst the prince unwed. Some explained the conduct by saying that after all, these humbler folk had rendered invaluable service at a critical time and really deserved recognition. Virata entered the court on seeing Kanka Sannyasin and the cook and the others seated in places reserved for princes and the nobility of king lost his temper and gave loud vent to his displeasure. When they felt they had enough fun, the Pandavas disclosed their identity to the amazement of all present. Virata was beside himself with joy to think that it was Pandava prince and Panchali who had been ministering to him all these days in the disguise. He embraced Kanka in exuberant gratitude and made a formal surrender of his kingdom and his all to him, of course, immediately receiving them back with thanks. Virata also insisted that he should give his daughter in marriage to Arjuna, but Arjuna said no, that would not be proper for the princess. Learn dancing and music from me. I, as her teacher, am in the position of father to her. He, however, agreed to accept her for his son Abhimanyu. Meanwhile, envoys arrived from the wicked and treacherous Duryodhan with a message for Yudhishthir. O son of Kunti, they said, Duryodhan feels very sorry that owing to the hasty action of Dhananjaya, you have to go back to woods again. He let himself be recognized before the end of 13th year, and so, in accordance with your undertaking, you have to dwell in the forest for another 12 years. Dharamputra laughed and said, Messenger, return quickly to Duryodhan and tell him to make further inquiry. The venerable Bhishma and other learned in the stars will no doubt tell him that full 13 years had been completed before your forces heard again the twang of Dhananjaya's bow and fled in fear, taking counsel. The 13th year during which the Pandavas had to remain undiscovered came to an end. No longer obliged to be in disguise, they left Virata's capital as Pandavas and settled openly in Upaplavya. Upaplavya, another place in Matsya territory. From there, they sent emissaries to summon their friends and relatives. From Dwarka came Balrama and Krishna with Arjuna's wife Subhadra and her son Abhimanyu, and accompanied by many Yadavas warrior. Loud and long was the blare of trumpet gongs as the Matsya prince had and the Pandavas went forth to receive Janardhan. Indrasena and many others like him who had at the beginning of the preceding year left the Pandavas in the forest rejoined them with their chariots at Upaplavya. The Kasi prince and Sabya ruler arrived with their forces. Draupada, the Panchala's prince, was there too with 3 divisions, bringing with him Shikandin, Draupadi's son, and her brother Drishtadumya. There were many other princes gathered at Upaplavya, well attached to Pandavas. Abhimanyu's marriage to Prince Uttara was solemnized according to Vedic rites. Before that illustrates gathering of friendly heroes. The wedding celebration over, they met in conclave in Virata's hall of assembly. Krishna sat next to Yudhishthir and Virata while Bhishma and Satyaki were seated beside Draupada. As the bustle died down, all the eyes were turned on Krishna, who now rose to speak. You all know, said Krishna to the hushed assembly, the story of the great deceit, how Yudhishthir was cheated at the game board and deprived of his kingdom and exiled with his brother and Draupada to the forest. For the 13 years, the sons of Pandu have patiently borne their trouble in redemption of their pledged word. Ponder well and counsel a course which will be in consonance with dharma and contribute to the glory and welfare of both Pandavas and Kauravas. For Dharaputra desires nothing that he cannot justly claim. He wishes nothing but good even to the sons of Dhritarashtra, who deceived him and did him grievous wrong. In giving your counsel, bear in mind the fraud and meanness of the Kauravas as well as the honorable magnanimity of the Pandavas. Devise a just and honorable settlement. We don't know what Duryodhana has in his mind. I feel we should send an able and upright emissary to him to persuade him to a peaceful settlement by the restoration of half of the kingdom to Yudhishthir. Balrama then rose to address the gathering. You have just heard Krishna, he said. The salutation he propounds is wise and just. I endorse it is as good for both Duryodhana and Dharaputra. If Kunti's son can get back their kingdom by peaceful settlement, nothing could be better for them, the Kauravas, and for the concerned. Only then will there be happiness and peace in the land. Someone has to go to convey to Duryodhana Yudhishthir's wish for a peaceful settlement and bring an answer for him. A man who has the weight and ability to bring about peace and good understanding, the envoy should get the cooperation of Bhishma, Dhritarashtra, Drona and Vidura, Kripa and Ashwathama, and even of Karna and Shakuni if possible, and secure support for Kunti's son. He should be one who on no account would give away to anger. Dharmaputra, with full knowledge of consequences, staked his kingdom and lost it obstinately, disregarding the reasoning of friend, fully aware that he was no match for the adept Shakuni. He yet played against him. He cannot now complain but can only supplicate for his rights. A fit envoy would be one who is not a warmonger but is dead set. In spite of every difficulty on achieving a peaceful settlement, Prince, I desire you to approach Duryodhana tactfully and make peace with him. Let us avoid an armed conflict by all the means in our power. Only that which accrues in peace is worthwhile. Out of war, nothing but wrong can issue. Balrama's position was that Yudhishthir knew that he was doing when he gambled away his kingdom and could not now claim it as of right. The fulfillment of the condition of exile could only give the Pandavas their personal freedom and not their kingdom. That is to say, they need not serve another term of exile in the forest, but it gave them no right to return of their kingdom. Dharmputra could only supplicate for the return of what he had lost and not claim it as of right. Balrama did not relish an armed conflict amongst kinds of the same family and rightly held that war would lead only to disaster. The poet puts an eternal truth in Balrama's mouth. Satyaki, the Yadava warrior who heard Balrama speak thus, could not contain himself. He rose in anger and spoke indignantly. Balrama's words do not strike me as in the least egregious. One canon skillful enough make out a plausible plea for any case, but not all the skills in the world can convert wrong into right or injustice into justice. I must protest against Balrama's stand, which fills me with disgust. Do we not see in one and the same tree one branch bowed with fruits and another sticking out, gaunt and useless? So, of these brothers, Krishna speaks word that breathe the spirit of Dharma, while Balrama's attitude is unworthy. And if you grant what cannot be doubted, then the Kauravas cheated Yudhishthir of his share of kingdom. Yudhishthir of why then allowing them to keep it as unjust as confirming a thief in the possession of his booty. Anyone who finds fault with Dharmputra does so in cowardly fear of Duryodhan, not for any sound reason. O Prince, forgive my harsh speech, not of his own volition, but because the Kauravas pressed and invited him to do so. Did the novice and unwilling Dharmputra play with a dishonest gambler? That game so fraught with disaster, why should he bow and supplicate before Duryodhan now that he has fulfilled his pledges? Yudhishthir is not a mendicant and need not beg. He has kept his words, and so he has his brothers 12 years in exile in the forest and 12 months thereafter in the disguise according to their pledge. And yet Duryodhan and his associate most shamelessly and dishonestly question the performance. I shall defeat this impudent villain in the battle, and they shall either seek Yudhishthir's pardon or meet their doom. How can a righteous war be wrong in any case? There is no sin in slaying enemies who take up armies and fight. To supplicate before the enemy is to incur disgrace. If Duryodhan desires war, he can have it, and we shall be quite ready for it. Let there be no delay, and let us get on with the preparation. Duryodhan is not going to part with territory without a war, and it would be folly to waste time. Draupada's heart was gladdened by Satyaki's resolute word. He rose and said, Satyaki is right and I support him. Soft words will not bring Duryodhan round to reason. Let us continue our preparation for war and let our friends be warned without loss of time to bring up their forces. Send words instantly to Salya, Drishtaketu, Jaitsana and Kekaya. We must of course send a suitable envoy to Dhritarashtra. The learned Brahman who conducts the religious ceremony in my court can be sent to Hastinapur with confidence. Instruct him well as to what he should say to Duryodhans and how he should convey the message to Bhishma, Dhritarashtra and Dronacharya. When Draupada concluded, Vasudeva rose and addressing Draupada said, what you suggest is practicable and also conforms to the kingly code. Baldeva and I are bound to Kauravas and the Pandavas with equal ties of affection. We came here for Princess Uttara's wedding and will return now to our city. Great are you among the princes of the land, alike in the age and wisdom, and entitled to advise us all. Dhritarashtra too holds you, his boyhood friends, in high esteem like Drona and Kripa. It is therefore only right that you should instruct the Brahmana envoy on his mission of peace. If he fails to persuade Duryodhana out of his error, prepare for the inevitable conflict, my friends, and send words to us. The conference ended and Krishna left for Dwarka with his people. The Pandavas and their allies went on with their preparation. Messengers went forth to all the friendly princes who got busy and mobilized their respective armies. Meanwhile, Duryodhan and his brothers were not idle. They also began preparing for the coming conflict and sent words to their friends to get their contingents ready for war. News of these preparations on both sides soon spread throughout the land. The constant rapid journeying back and forth of princes could caused a great stir everywhere. The earth shook beneath the heavy tramp of marching legions, says the poet. It would appear that even in olden days military preparations were made in much the same way as in our times. Draupadi called in his Brahmana and said to him, "You know Duryodhana's bent of mind as well as the qualities of the Pandavas. Go to him as the emissary of Pandavas." The Kaurav deceived the Pandavas with the connivance of their father Dhritarashtra, who would not listen to the sage advice of Vidura. Show the old weak king who is misled by his own sons the path of dharma and wisdom. You will find in Vidura a great ally in this task. Your mission may lead to difference of opinion amongst the elder statesmen such as Bhishma, Drona and Kripa, as well as among the warlords. And if this happens, it will be some time before those differences are smoothed out, which will be time gained for the completion of the Pandavas' war preparation. As long as you are in Duryodhana's capital talking of peace, their preparation for war will receive a setback, which is all the good from the Pandava standpoint. If by a miracle you are able to come back with good terms of peace, so much the better. I do not expect Duryodhan will agree to peaceful settlement. Still, to send one on the peace mission will advantageous to us. In December 1941, the Japanese were carrying on negotiation with the Americans, and immediately on the breakdown of those talks, took them to unwares and attacked Pearl Harbor, destroying the naval force there. Draupada's instruction. Why is it written here? Not sure. Draupada's instruction to the Brahmins would show that this was no new technique and that even in the old days the same method was followed of carrying on negotiation and even sincerely working for peace, but simultaneously preparing with unremitting vigor for outbreak of war and carrying on peace talks with the object of creating dissension in the army's rank is nothing new under the sun. Arjuna's charioteer. Okay, so yes, this is last chapter, short chapter for today's episode. Excuse me, guys. Excuse me. Having sent Draupada's Brahman to Hastinapur on the peace mission, the Pandavas sent word at the same time to the prince likely to favor their cause to collect their forces and hold themselves in the readiness for war. To Dwarka, Arjun went himself, having understood through his spies the turn events were walking. Duryodhan too did not remain idle. Learning that Vasudeva was back in his home city, he sped towards Dwarka in his chariot as fast as his swiftest horses could take him. The two of them, Arjun and Duryodhan, thus reached Dwarka on the same day. Krishna was fast asleep because they were his close relatives. Arjun and Duryodhan could go into his bedroom. There they both waited for Krishna to wake up. Duryodhan, who went and first seated himself on a decorated throne chair at the head of the bed, while Arjuna kept standing at its foot. with arms folded in respectful posture. When Mahadev woke up, his eyes fell on Arjun, who stood up in front of him, and he gave him warm welcome. Turning then to Duryodhan, he welcomed him too and asked them what brought them both to Dwarka. Wait, I will read this again. Having sent Draupada's Brahman to Hastinapur on the peace mission, the Pandavas sent word at the same time to the prince likely to favor their cause to collect their forces and hold themselves in the readiness for war. To Dwarka, Arjun went himself. Having understood through his spies the turn events were taking, Duryodhan too did not remain idle. Learning that Vasudeva Krishna was back in his home city, he sped towards Dwarka. So they both are going towards Krishna in Dwarka. In his chariot, as fast as he swifted his horses could take him. The two of them, Arjuna and Duryodhan, thus reached Dwarka on the same day. Okay, Krishna was fast asleep because they were his close relative. Arjuna and Duryodhan could go into his bedroom. There they both waited for Krishna to wake up. Duryodhan, who went in first, seated himself on a decorated throne chair at the head of the bed, while Arjuna kept standing at its foot with arm folded in respectful posture. So Duryodhan took a throne chair at the head of the bed, while Arjuna kept standing at its foot with arms folded in respectful posture. When Mahadeva woke up, his eyes fell on Arjun, and who stood in front of him, and he gave him warm welcome. Turning them to Duryodhan, he welcomed him too and asked them what brought them both to Dwarka. Duryodhan was the first to speak. "It looks sad," said he, "as though war would break out between us soon." Duryodhan was first to speak, and he said, "It looks as though war would break between us soon. If it does, you must support me. Arjun and I are equally beloved of you. We both claim equally close relationship with you. You cannot say that either of us is nearer to you than the other. I came here before Arjun. Tradition has it that he who came first should be shown preference. Janardhan, you are the greatest among the great, so it is incumbent on you to set an example to others. Confirm with your conduct that traditional dharma. Confirm with your conduct that traditional dharma, and remember that it was I who came first." To which Purushottama Krishna answered, "Son of Dhritarashtra, it may be that you came here first, but it was Kunti's son that I saw immediately on waking up." Oh Krishna. If you were the first arrival, it was Arjuna who first caught my eye, so even in this respect your claim on me are equal, and I am therefore bound to render assistance to both the sides. In distributing favors, the traditional usage is to begin with the junior most among the recipients. I would therefore offer the choice to Arjuna first. If you were the first arrival, it was Arjuna who first caught my eye, so even in this respect your claim on me are equal, and I am therefore bound to render assistance to both the sides. In distributing favor, the traditional usage is to begin with junior most among the recipient. I would therefore offer the choice to Arjun first. The Narayana, my tribesmen, are my equals in battle and constitute a host large and almost invincible. In my distribution of assistance, they will be on one side and I individually on the other side, but I shall wield no weapon and take no part in actual fighting. So Narayana said, "There are my tribesmen on one side who are invincible, and there will be me on other side, and I will I shall wield no weapon and take no part in actual fighting. So that was a condition which Krishna put on them. Turning to Arjuna, he said, Partha, think it over well. Would you want me alone and the weaponless, or would you prefer the prowess of Narayana? Exercise the right to the first choice which custom gives you as a younger man. Scarcely had Krishna finished when Arjun said with reverence and without hesitation, I would be content if you are with us, though you may wield no weapon. Duryodhan could hardly contain himself for the joy at what he thought was Arjun's imbecile choice. He gladly chose the help of Vasudeva's army and his request was granted. Pleased with this acquisition of mighty force, Duryodhan went to Baldeva. Duryodhan went to Baldeva and told him the story. As he finished speaking, the mighty Balrama said, yes, he is Balrama, not Baldeva. As he finished speaking, the mighty Balrama said, Duryodhan, they must have told you all I said at the time of the marriage of Virata's daughter. I pleaded your case and urged everything that could be said for you. Often have I told Krishna that we have equal ties with Kauravas and Pandavas, but my words failed to carry conviction to him. I am helpless. It is impossible for me to side with one whom Krishna opposes. I will not help Partha and I cannot support you against Krishna. Duryodhan, you come of an illustrious line which is respected by all the prince of the land. Well then, it must be a war. Bear yourself in accordance with the Kshatriya code, said he. Duryodhan returned to Hastinapur in high spirits, saying to himself, Arjun has made a fool of himself. The great army of Dwarka will fight on my side, and Balrama's good wishes too are with me. Vasudeva has been left without any army. See, that is why Duryodhan was very happy. Dhananjay, why did you choose thus unwisely, preferring me alone and unarmed to my fully equipped and heroic forces? Asked Krishna of Arjuna with a smile. When they were alone, Arjuna answered, my ambition is to achieve glory even like yours. You have the power and prowess to face all the princes of the land and their hordes in the battle single handed. I too feel I can do it, so I desire that I should win the battle with you driving my chariot unarmed. I have desired this for a long, and you have today fulfilled my wish. Dhananjay, why did you choose thus unwisely, preferring me alone and unarmed to my fully equipped and heroic forces? Asked Krishna of Arjun with a smile when they were alone. Arjun answered, my ambition is to achieve glory even like yours. You have the power and prowess to face all the princes of the land and their hordes in battle single handed. I too feel I can do it, so I desire that I should win the battle with you driving my chariot unarmed. I have desired this for long, and you have today fulfilled my wish. Vasudeva smiled again and pronounced this benediction. Are you trying to compete with me? May you succeed, for he was released with Arjun's decision. This is the sacred story of how Krishna became Partha's charioteer. Okay, my dear friends, so we have completed until chapter number. Until when? Until where we have completed? So we have completed until chapter 50, and on day 10 we are going to read this. Krishna's mission until here on day 10. Okay, thank you, my dear friends. Thank you for your patience and understanding.